Alrighty, now for some reason my image has still frozen. Can you see me okay? Is the question. Now, alrighty. I know you can definitely hear me. All good. Dave, you're back. Thanks, Sean. So am I moving? I've got my image has frozen. So am I animated? Is my next question. Just waiting for you, Sean, just to let me know whether, yeah, as far as I can see, the stream is perfect. Brilliant. Thanks, Sean. Well, Sean, I wonder then, in which case, given that you've been very active on the the chat so far, and you're the only one there, do you have any questions you want to pose? And just in case those watching now didn't see the other part of my live where I just messed up the audio a little bit there. Although according to Sean, apparently the audio is fine. But hopefully it's slightly clearer now. This is a live stream in which you can pose questions to me, should you wish, about anything that I put out there in YouTube world. So that means anything to do with breath work, the Wim Hof method, cold therapy, meditation, mindful hacks, positive psychology, flow practice. So for those that don't know, my 10-day course incorporates a lot of the stuff that I put out here, and also all the practice that I'm a coach, as I'm a flow coach, as well as a breathwork coach, NLP practitioner, as well as hypnotherapist. So my course is kind of derived from a lot of that, and I make use of something called the Flow Hub that provides loads of how-to videos that I can guide people through during the course. Short breathwork techniques, mindful practice, and all of these are designed. And I've got some questions now, so I'll finish my ramble. All of these are designed to number one, help you find that flow in your life. Where things just start going right for you, where you see opportunities, etc. And then also by practicing all of these methods on a daily basis, you will then experience these flow state moments. And more about that later if you want to chat about that. So I knew we would get the vaccine question. I can't believe it's the first one, Rodrigo. I'm not going to answer that because that is too tricky on YouTube world. But thanks for the question, anyway. I appreciate it. I understand why you're asking that. So Sean, thanks, by the way, for stating that. You're a long-time viewer. I appreciate that. Starting with a biggie, how does one attempt to, for lack of a better term, filter out a variety of methods that are woo-woo nonsense from valuable techniques such as Wim Hof method, positive thinking? Right, now, it's interesting because what I used to consider as woo-woo a few years ago before I got into this, I no longer do. Now, that's not to say that you should, by the way. I'm just saying that by going down this path of exploration around all of these different practices that I do, Winston, that my eyes have been opened to what is possible. I genuinely believe, for example, that our bodies are designed to heal. Therefore, there are lots of practices out there that will kickstart that healing process that you, Sean, might consider woo-woo. So part of, I guess the reason why I'm saying that is that this is your journey, yours alone. What I find attractive and of use to me isn't necessarily going to be the same for you. You have to figure this stuff out for yourself. You have to create your own path. When it comes to the Wim Hof method, there is absolutely no doubt as soon as Wim himself started doing this practice, most people considered that woo-woo. Bearing in mind, he's been doing it since the 90s, where in Holland, he really was considered an absolute nutcase. Well, he is considered a nutcase still, isn't he? Let's face it. But a lovable nutcase. But yeah, certainly when he was doing all this stuff, it was woo-woo to everybody around him. When you think about breath work, for example, only recently has that come out of its esoteric leaning and more into the mainstream where people are willing to accept it because it's now got research backing it and science backing it. And that's interesting, isn't it? A lot of people, I was one, needed that scientific perspective to accept it for what it is. I now have gone further, and I don't think that science always has the answers. So I don't necessarily need that now for me to accept something. So in answer to your question, I hope that partly answers it, because the filtering that you do is your filter. You have to decide what is attractive and resonates with you. The important thing is that you find something that does. Clearly, you've mentioned Wim Hof there, so that clearly resonates with you. And positive thinking, clearly that resonates with you, and meditation. And I see here, I feel like often many can be on the borderline, especially if one is from a scientific skeptical background. Yeah, this is the problem, I think. If you've come from a scientific background, then it's your analytical mind that is most active. Unless, of course, you've gone into the quantum physics realm, such as Dr. Bruce Lipton. But I know that if I mention quantum physics to you, Sean, you might well consider that woo-woo. Because this is where I think when science doesn't have the answers, it then labels it as pseudoscience or woo-woo. And I'm not saying you're right or wrong here, by the way, Sean, because I think this is a really valuable question. And again, I really appreciate you sticking with me on this channel and hopefully enjoying the stuff that I put out there. But I'm saying that because I was once somebody that saw the world through your eyes, and I now sound like I'm evangelical. I don't want to here. But I guess what I'm saying is that when you start further exploring these ideas without a critical eye, in other words, just opening your eye, or eyes rather, unless you're a Cyclops, to something that might be possible, then you just start to see stuff that that I think just further allows you to go down that path, the untrodden path, where most people consider it's a bit fluffy. So I think what you've got to do is, in a way, you've got to try this stuff for yourself, and whatever experience that you have doesn't have to be applied to any other kind of thinking. In other words, let's say you did 5 rounds of breath work. Okay, if you've done this before, you know that you're going to get some kind of heightened state, and you've got a choice when you get that. You either take it for what it is and you apply your scientific understanding and you think, okay, this is a physiological response due to the stress that I've caused on my body. And that is fine. That's a blooming good answer. Or when you start considering that we have DMT inside our body, just like DMT is everything, it's present in everything in life. To me, it makes sense that it is there for a reason. And by doing this kind of practice, just like taking psilocybin, ayahuasca, whatever these, or various other plant-based medicine, that they activate something inside us. Anyway, it's a really good question, Sean. I hope that kind of has answered your question, because I don't think there is an absolute answer to it. I think it really does come down to your own beliefs, and I don't necessarily mean religious, I just mean how you view the world and whether something resonates with you. One of the things that I quite often talk about actually on my course and on this channel is that you have a choice now to create your own path. It has to be a path that resonates with you. It is not based on anybody else's leaning, dogma, experience. It has to be something based on you figuring this stuff out. And if you do that and you start exploring in this your own research project, in other words, your own N=1 research project, really wonderful things start to happen. Because it's in the exploration that life becomes fun. It's in as an adult. I'm an adult approaching 50, and I still look at the world now with this kind of childlike awe mindset. I want to have fun. I want to have experience. I want to play. And I think when you apply that kind of mindset to everything in life, life just becomes, you start slowing down this prefrontal cortex. You start experiencing life in the moment, in the present. That is when you're heading towards flow, by the way, when you're experiencing much more in the present. Now, another question. Yeah, Rodrigo, I hope that's okay. And thanks, by the way. From Nicholas McAnally, what's your opinion on diet? Yeah, now, here is a really tricky one, because I've set aside this year to focus more on my nutrition. So it's a tricky one in that, as you know, I'm not an expert on this. So I will give you my opinion. But I will also state that that opinion is growing, or rather, my knowledge is growing, and therefore my opinion might well change in the future as I start doing my own research. So very recently, I did a gut biome analysis, and that proved interesting. And I'm now looking at ways of enhancing my gut through various different either supplementation or other forms of getting good bacteria in there. However, somebody pointed out actually in my Facebook group that these gut biome tests aren't always particularly accurate. So for some doing these gut biome tests, they absolutely categorically state, yeah, the best thing you could do, worth everybody trying and experimenting with. But for others out there, they just don't see a value in it. But this is the kind of the world that we live in, isn't it, really? And again, this goes back to why you have to create your own path with all this stuff and figure it out for yourself and decide what's right for you. But when it comes to nutrition, thanks, Joanne. I'm not too sure what you're referring to there with the brave, but thank you. So when it comes to nutrition, as you know, I fast a lot. Initially, I was fasting too much, lost too much weight, especially when combined with the ice therapy and things like that. So I'm always mindful of that. I pretty much every day do intermittent fasting, but I change the eating window. And when it comes to the physical days, oh, thanks, Joanne. Yes, I think it's about time, don't you? Joanne was asking there, brave for doing a live chat, and thank you for saying that. I don't see it as brave, but I do think it was about time that I did this, and it gives me a chance to say hello to you lot as well. When it comes to doing physical work outside, I find that I do need to eat more, and what I do then is I do turn to carbs. Not that carbs are evil, by the way. I know lots of people think they are. I don't personally, as long as you eat the right carbs. So I eat a lot of squash, sweet potato, things like that. So let's say I'm doing an hour of digging, 8 hours of digging. If it was an hour of digging, that'd be very easy. Let's say I'm doing 8 hours of digging. I do have a breakfast. I never used to, and now I'm finding it better to have a breakfast, which might be porridge, interestingly, and it seems to work. And then at lunch, I'll have a big old tub of sweet potato, beetroot, loads of greens, pomegranate, blueberries. Honestly, I mix it all up. I don't go for taste here, although sometimes it's quite nice. I just purely go for function. In other words, right, let's get all the colors in there. Let's make sure I get some good carbs, some protein, and all the other stuff. So that's kind of how I view my nutrition and diet at the moment. I don't, by the way, disagree that there is a way of eating for everybody. And I think for some people, paleo works brilliantly. For some people, keto diet works brilliantly. For some people, I do believe vegetarian and veganism works really well. I'm now of the opinion that it isn't right for everybody. I genuinely don't. I've heard just too much stories of people saying it's not worked out for them. And And I think that is also based on body composition and the type of body that you have. And I think possibly carnivore diet is right for some people. So I think it is, again, a case of finding your own path with this. But my diet is generally, I guess it's more like a keto diet, if anything. Well, actually, no, it's not, is it? Because let's face it, the amount of carbs I eat. But what I do with my carbs is I know now that I should, in the main, apart from when I'm working physically, only eat them in the evening. That seems to work for me. Right, now, and the other thing on diet as well, actually, I believe that it is better to eat the foods that you are in your environment. So in other words, however you were brought up and brought into this world, I think it is easier on your body to eat the foods that were around when you lived the first 7 years of your life. Because let's face it, that's when your biome was created. And yes, obviously we grow and we develop and we adapt and change as we go through life. But it just seems to make sense to me that eating foods that have been present when you were brought into the world, for me anyway, that they just seem to work better with my body. To me, it makes sense. I think, it's no wonder when you do travel around the world that you end up getting lots of issues in the gut. Eating all the foods that you shouldn't be eating. Lots of people in this country, for example, eat a curry every day, but they weren't necessarily brought up on it, and they suffer with gut issues. And I think, the writing's on the wall there, the message is there. Right, now, a few other questions. How many ice baths per week do you have? Good question, Philip. It's not even done on a weekly basis. In the summer, I have a few more. I have a cold shower, as you know, every day. Always have, every day, 365 days a year. And in the summer, sometimes 2, sometimes 3, actually, if I've done some exercise outside. Ice baths, so I will be honest, when I did have a bath, as in a in-the-house bath, I was having them more often. I've recently moved to another place where I only have a shower. So I do dip in the river. So here in Bradford and Avon, we've got beautiful rivers, or a river rather, not rivers. We've got a beautiful river here. Lots of people dive in it and swim in it. If I do, then I keep my mouth closed, obviously. If you know in this country what the quality of our water is like here, then it's worth keeping your mouth closed. But I don't think it's dangerous in any way not to swim in it. So yeah, I love ice baths. I probably don't have them as much as I would like. And it's not a case of should either. I don't think there is a should. I think if you're having cold showers every day, that's fine. That's good enough, especially when you add that little bag of ice that I showed you and put it around the shower head. Such a brilliant idea. You're getting good cold. By the way, there are other ways of really getting it colder. There are various different systems out there that you can use to get that cold water down even colder. So Nicholas, you're a planet-based guy. Like it. I'm assuming you were being funny there. I think that's cool. Ben, currently going through some issues, struggling with life in general. Can you offer any advice, especially around breathwork? Yes, I can, Ben. First of all, sorry to hear that. Second of all, you're amongst most. So I believe to a greater or lesser extent, everybody suffers from some kind of anxiety or stress. And some people are better at dealing with it than others. Some people are having it sort of on and off, and that can actually be quite good for us. Sean Aker in Harvard University has done some really good studies there that short bouts of stress, for example, is quite good for us because it allows our body to adapt and change. If you're going through regular and continued bouts of anxiety, stress, mental health issues, then I really feel sorry for you. And that kind of glib answer that I gave you isn't going to help. But One book I would highly recommend you look at, first of all, is Letting Go by David Hawkins. If you can get up the energy to read a book or listen to it on Audible, I highly recommend it, because it adds some context into what's going on. When it comes down to it, all of the thoughts that we have, this is what he says in the book, and I highly agree with this, all of the thoughts that we have are not important. It is the feelings that we want to hone in on. It is the feelings that we want to let go. So every thought is really your brain's attempt at rationalizing the current situation, given the stimuli that's going on. So actually, all of the thoughts that you have are totally irrelevant. You want to be able to get to a point of letting go of the feelings. So in other words, focusing on the feelings themselves. And right now, I'm guessing you're thinking, oh yeah, that's really easy, Dave. Thanks very much. It's one of those things that, and I'll come to other practices and ideas in a second, by the way. It is one of those things that the more you practice, the easier it becomes. And what you do is you become, in a very kind of Eckhart Tolle way, you become the observer of your feelings. So when you feel shit, you become aware of this feeling, but you're not analyzing in any way. You're not trying to get yourself rid of it. You're just experiencing the feeling. A thought will come up and you accept the thought, you experience the thought, and you let it go. But you don't analyze the thought. You're not questioning the thought in any way. And you're going back to the feeling. What is the root cause of the feeling? Or rather, what is the feeling itself? And so that's the process. And it's kind of this ongoing process where every time you feel rubbish, you're focusing on the feeling rather than the thought. Because as I said, the thoughts are meaningless. They are just simply your brain rationalizing your current situation. So let's say you are going through a bit of poo and you bump into somebody accidentally in the street. If you're in a good state, you just think, okay, fine, that happens. It's an accident. If you're in a bad state, then your brain rationalizes that person has really done you harm. There is justification for having a go at them, for shouting at them. Same reason for why people get into road rage. It's not that they are necessarily bad people or that they are they've got a screw loose in the main. It is because they're going through poo in some way. They feel rubbish, and their brain rationalizes their current situation by focusing on external stimuli or an external justification for why they feel rubbish. When it comes to breath work, the first thing, and by the way, breath is absolutely key to dealing with all of this stuff, in my opinion. There's a really good study, a meta-analysis that's just come out actually based on medical data looking at slow breathing in particular, and they've now got enough data to show the psychophysiological benefits of slow breathing. And so the first thing I do when I'm feeling rubbish is I focus on the breath, and it is a conscious way of breathing. So when we're not consciously breathing, in other words, when we're not consciously aware of our breath, that is when our brains are more likely to move into this prefrontal cortex, analytical thought, negative introspection, etc., etc. So if we can keep, when we're feeling rubbish, if we have a moment of rational thought, and bearing in mind when you're feeling rubbish, your brain doesn't work as well as it could. You've lost a whole lot of energy there because the energy is being poured into the wrong areas of the brain. But if you have a moment of kind of rational thought, say to yourself, focus on the breath. And what you do is you start thinking about the movement of the breath in your diaphragm. And you're thinking about the movement as you inhale, the stomach extends. As you exhale, the stomach moves in. And you just become aware, and you're putting all of your attention on the breath. And as you're doing that, you're also bringing your attention on the cool air as it moves in and the warm air as it exits. And that as it exits, you're saying to yourself, extend the exhale. And if you can bring yourself to doing much longer exhales, that's the first part of all of this. Extended exhales of kickstart a parasympathetic response. It is your part of your nervous system that allows you to rest, digest, calm yourself down. So I I don't think if anybody right now is feeling in any way rubbish, if they're feeling, psychologically toxic, do not do the Wim Hof method. Do not do pranayama. Do not do any of this. It's not going to make you feel good. It's probably going to make you feel far worse. It's going to exacerbate your problem. There's far too many people out there telling you that these methods are good if you're in a really bad state. I don't agree with that, because they're creating a stressful response on the body. You might be lucky, you might get away with it, but in my mind, if you're actively creating things like adrenaline, cortisol, which is already pumping through your body anyway, you don't want to do that. Instead, you want to do the exact opposite. Focus on parasympathetic. So longer exhales, become more consciously aware of your breathing, slow it down, just really slow it down. And when you slow, what's interesting is when you focus on the breath and you slow it down, you become a lot more aware of your senses. So as soon as you pick up sound, focus on it. What can I hear? What are the noises around me? If you pick up a smell, focus on it. This is your body telling you, use these things that you've been given, because we often switch all of these things off. When you use the senses, when you slow down the breath, then you're slowing down the nervous system. Such a great tool, so easy as well. I hope that helps. I might come back to that with some more ideas in a second, Ben, actually. Sean, thank you, Dave. Much appreciated. There's more to life than scientific journals. My eyes have been opened. I just don't want them to open too far. Why don't you want to open them too far? Thinking and feeling is the way to go. Yeah, I agree, Sean. I really do. Though I would say, why don't you want them to go too far? Let it go. And it might well get there for you, by the way, Sean. I really do think that. If you just start heading down a path, looking at these practices, trying them, see what you think. Don't have any analytical thought on whether you think they're woo-woo or not. Just give them a go. And then you might have an experience that just opens your eyes a little bit further, and then you might then think, okay, I'll just try this exercise over here, see what happens, and then your eyes might open again. Who cares where it's going to lead? Well, I've said this to you before. One of the things that I do a lot, because I tell you a lot, I tell people on my course or in one-to-ones or in webinars, I always say this, but I genuinely think it is worthwhile thinking of your deathbed scene. Thinking that whenever you go, let's hope you go with friends and family around you. And when you do go, surely the best way to leave this world is to think, okay, I've had a good life. And yeah, okay, I've had a few hiccups along the way, but I've done everything I thought I would. I've tried the things that may not have worked, but I gave them a go. I worked on the opportunities that were given to me. I loved people around me. What I would rather not is being laid out on the bed thinking, oh, bugger, that opportunity that came my way, I didn't do it, and I should have done. And that relationship I could have had with somebody, I just wasn't brave enough. Or, that path that opened up over there that was, full of fear, and I decided not to go for it because that fear stopped me. Isn't it better to do the former? To go out thinking, okay, well, I gave it a good go and had a great life. I think about that quite regularly, and I don't think it's morbid to do that. I think for me it's helpful. Yeah, Joanne found cold showers really good for mental health. I agree, actually. So conversely, hang on. Whilst breath work I don't think is good if you're in a really bad state, breath work is if you are in a bad state, but the right kind of breath work, not the energetic type of sympathetic style of breath work. That's not good when you're in a bad state. Cold showers, on the other hand, are absolutely good when you're in a really bad state. So I've had a couple of panic attacks. One of them was really bad, and This was when, as a family, we were going through some fairly traumatic times. And despite the stuff that I knew at the time, and I know more now, but despite the stuff, some of the stuff that I knew then, I was running through my list. When I think about it, it's quite funny. I was standing on my head. I was trying breath work, doing the things I've told you not to do. And then it was the winter time, and I thought, right, there's only one thing left. I'm going to have to go outside in the garden, and it's the only thing I can think of doing. Grab the garden hose, spray myself down. And it worked. It totally changed my state. It was that state-changing method that shook me out of my system. Shook me out of my state. In other words, despite its shock to the system, therefore increased adrenaline cortisol, it actually was that much of a shock. It was like somebody slapping me in the face. And that did put a stop to the panic attack. So yeah, I totally agree with you there, mainly because of I did it and the adrenaline feeling of being alive. It really does make you feel that way, doesn't it, Joanne? And for those that, I'm guessing everybody here has probably done a cold shower by now, because let's face it, everybody in the whole world has, haven't they? Or have they? When it comes to doing a cold shower for the first few times, your brain, by the way, is going to say, get out, don't be so silly, you're feeling rubbish, what a stupid idea. And a really good way of staying the course, staying in there, is to play with it and have fun. In other words, you're probably going to have involuntary noises coming out your mouth anyway, so you might as well make them positive ones. So I don't need to do this now, but initially when I was doing this and getting used to it, I was doing things like I was doing the evolutionary holler, which for those that don't know is a kind of a woohoo, which, by the way, whenever I do that, it makes me feel good. There's another one actually, Ben. I know this is a bit kind of silly, but it works. If I'm feeling a bit rubbish and I don't care who's around me, because generally I don't care, then I will quite often do that very, very loudly, especially in the woods, and it will be a quick woohoo kind of noise. I do that 3 times and I feel much better afterwards. You do that in the shower, you're going to feel good, I guarantee. And also, let's think about it now from a scientific perspective. When you think of things like neuro-linguistic programming, I use some of the anchoring techniques in clinical therapy. Anchoring is a way of holding a feeling that can be remembered again through, let's say, the touch of a finger, a way of anchoring a state to your body. And if you think about it, when you're in the cold shower, if all you're doing is making positive noises, your brain eventually goes, before you have a cold shower the next time, and before the cold shower, typically your brain says, you haven't got time today, or it's a really silly idea, you don't need to do this. Eventually your brain remembers the positive experience that you had in the cold shower, not just the positive experience you had afterwards, because if everybody did a cold shower, they would all feel good afterwards. But it's the bit in the cold shower that people are often afraid of or fearful of or reticent to do. If, therefore, the first few goes, when you're in there, you make these really positive sounds, I guarantee your brain will register those as templates, so that when you next prepare to go in, it's a lot easier. Your brain doesn't put up those negative statements. Philip, you're off to work, so that means you're in the States, I'm guessing. But thank you for being here, Philip. I appreciate the videos being a big help for me. Oh, thanks, KBob23. I really appreciate your comment. Thanks for sticking with me with all of these videos that I put out. It's funny, there's a lot of YouTube videos out there, a lot of channels out there, aren't there? And when you get a really good vein of content that people really respond to, at the moment, for example, I've seen lots of channels really go crazy to do with stealth camping and staying on a mountain on your own and that kind of stuff. And they're really attractive because if they're filmed really well, I can see why people want to watch them. Some of them are very sort of ASMR like. My channel has had slow, steady growth. And I guess that is because because I am a human being, I have a personality. I'm not going to resonate with everybody. What I say, how I act, isn't going to resonate with everybody. So I guess, whilst the message that I put out might be similar to other people's channels, you have to like me first, don't you? I'm the brand, let's face it. So if you have stuck with me, I'm guessing it's because you like me, because what I put out there is me. I don't wear a mask. It is the real me. The only thing you miss, by the way, is just some of the personal stuff, because I don't believe in putting it out there. I'm not one of those people that does. Well, actually, you do get personal stuff. It's just the stuff that I just don't think you need to see. I don't put that out there. What I generally put out there as content is stuff that I think will help others. In other words, if it's helped me, I think it's going to help you. Now, also, I will add, and this is with absolute honesty and clarity and authenticity, of course, I also now promote stuff. I don't have a problem with that. I hope you don't too. And the kind of stuff that I promote, of course, is my course, my 10-day evolutionary course, my one-to-ones, my Wednesday sessions, by the way, and that's worth mentioning because we've only got a couple of people doing it at the moment. So it's a good time to join for the fact that you get to dictate what these sessions are going to look like. So last week, for example, it was an hour-long Soma breath session designed around parasympathetic breathing. Though one of the participants absolutely experienced some heightened states. So the Wednesday sessions could be interesting. I see them evolving over time. And also they are going to be attached to a membership that I'm creating as well. That will be partly that, as well as one-to-ones, as well as stuff to do with the Flow Hub. Sorry, whenever I talk a lot, I don't know how people on YouTube do this. If I talk a lot, I get a dry mouth. Right. Any other questions? Anybody else has anything to say? I'm just scrolling through now. Joanne, yeah, cold was like a reset button for me. Definitely a slap in the face. Absolutely. Isn't that brilliant? Tim, best supplements for energy and mental focus. I do the Wim Hof breathing and Soma and wondered what your thoughts are on supplements to keep energy up for over 40s. Well, as you may or may not know, I'm experimenting with nicotinamide mononucleotide, NMN. NMN is an NAD booster. NAD is something in your body that's linked to things like sirtuins, if you've heard of those before. But really, the only thing you need to know about NAD is that it's all linked to energy. And the problem is, as we get older, NAD decreases, doesn't increase. NAD decreases. So therefore, there's lots of talk about how to boost NAD through NAD boosters. NMN is one of those. There are other ways of boosting your NAD, by the way. Fasting, for example, does it, and exercise. So NMN, I do recommend. It has had an impact on my recovery and subtly my energy. My energy has been pretty good since I started my journey anyway. But I think for a lot of people, they would find the NMN to be a useful product around energy. By the way, so supplementation is still new for me. I always believed previously that, rightly or wrongly, that you didn't need to supplement. I just believed that you could get everything you needed from living your life correctly, eating the right foods. Now I am erring more towards supplementation, partly because of what's going on in the world. I am definitely a big believer in consuming vitamin D3 and zinc and vitamin C. Also glutamine. But as far as other energy is concerned, apart from, I don't recommend it, but when I really needed it, I did turn to one of Ross Edgley's products. What's it called? The Protein Works, I think. And it's a product that really does give you incredible focus and energy. And it was amazing, but it's not one you'd want to take on a regular basis. I think most of the stuff in there wasn't too bad for you. It definitely wasn't, the stuff that you find in Red Bull, but I'll find out what it is in a second and I'll tell you what it is. But it's not something I'd recommend you do on a daily basis. That would probably have a serious side effect. But for when I needed it, it was very useful. I do, though, think, Tim, the more you practice all of the stuff that I put out there, the more energy you will create. Because part of it is not, energy can be created, remember, from the things that we don't do and do. In other words, if you wake up in the morning, you roll out of bed, you crawl to the kitchen, make yourself a coffee, sit and watch TV, then it's no wonder that you're probably going to lose some energy in the day. If, however, you wake up, you roll out of bed, sit on the floor, think about your intention. In other words, what's my intention? How am I going to get through today? How am I going to flow through today, making use of breath work, pushing my body, lifting my body, positively interacting with other human beings, eating the right foods, and then embarking on the things like the 5 Tibetan rites, which is a brilliant, easy yoga routine. You've seen it on my channel, I would guess. If you haven't, do check it out. It's so easy to do. It's a brilliant way of starting the day. Then practicing a bit of breath work, then doing a cold shower, then not eating, for as long as you can. You will find that your energy levels will significantly increase. Add to that chair yoga if you do a job that sits down all day. Add to that doing push-ups every day, pull-ups. So you've seen the stuff that I do. I don't use weights. That's not. I don't have anything against weights, by the way, apart from fixed machines. That's the only thing I have something against. And gyms. I don't like gyms. But I think there are things that you can do to your body where you don't need to wear any kit, that you can spend 3-5 minutes doing, and it will have a huge benefit on your body. You just break up the day. You no longer think about exercise. You just simply think, right, I've been doing this one thing, whatever this one thing is. Could be reading a book, could be sat at the computer for the last hour. I'm now going to do something different that's a balanced opposite to what I've just been doing. And I think if you go about your day like that, you will find that you increase your energy. Again, a lot of this stuff I do on my 10-day course for ideas like this. Paulie, thank you, Dave, for the time and effort. Thank you for your message. Tracy, thank you for your breath guides. What time is Wednesday? The Wednesday slot, please. It is at 6 o'clock BST. And the Wednesday sessions, as I said, right now it's great because those that are involved in it dictate really what we're going to do. 1 week it could be a full hour long of breath work. The next week it could be me saying, right, here's a new idea I'd like you to try. And if you, by the way, you try this breath work with this kind of movement, with this kind of positive mantra or ritual, with this or that. So it's all about trying different methods that work for me and experimenting with it. Talking about mind hacks or mindful practice as well. So it's a real combination at the moment. It may well be that in 6 months' time it looks very different and it has a bit more structure. At the moment, I like the fact that it's different every week, and every week I say, right, how was that? Do you want the same next week, or do you want to explore other ideas? Yes, I do start the day with a cold shower every day. Always have done. 365 days a year, and if it's snowing, I get outside and get naked in it. Well, not every time, obviously, but I again, I have this playful mindset now. I love to experiment with it and touch and feel the world. I do hug a tree every now and again, by the way. And Sean, I know you're going to think that's woo woo. I just do. I love it, and I think when it comes to the cold, I still play around with it. As I said earlier, we've got a river here; it's beautiful. I'll be in there with Winston sometimes. But yeah, cold showers absolutely every day. Sometimes 2 or 3 if it's hot as well. What else we got here? I like the idea you had once of learning different techniques, supplements, foods, etc., and then using these as a toolkit to suit whatever day you find yourself in. As an ADHD person, this is gold. Thanks, Joanne. Yes, that is one of the things I teach on my course. So I talk about an imaginary toolbox. One of my former participants said, why don't you call it a toy box? And I thought, brilliant. Yes, exactly. Especially when we think about playing, life, it doesn't matter how old you are, you can still play at life. And the more you do, the more of a enjoyable experience this becomes, because you start seeing the world with open eyes, with wide eyes. You start changing the neurochemical balance in your body to start producing more of the positive chemicals. Ben, this is one for you here. This is a progressive thing, Ben. I know, and I think if you're in the poo right now, it's hard for you to think about these concepts. That's why if you're in poo, focus on the breath. Keep drawing back to the breath. If you can, start to let go of feelings and think about the feelings rather than the thoughts. Remember, the thoughts are just your brain's rationalization of the current situation. Read that book, Letting Go. If you can find the time to listen to or read it, I highly recommend it. But yeah, that toolbox works, because if you think about it, if you practice a number of these ideas every day, eventually it gets to a point where your reaction to a given stimuli is a motor response. Let's say, for example, you're in the car, somebody cuts you up, whereas 6 months ago you would have gotten angry and said, yeah, F you, F that. It may well have led to a further altercation. If you practice these methods every day, you no longer react in that way in most situations. I'm not going to tell you here that this is it now, total panacea, I've got the key. But I guarantee you that through all of this stuff practiced every day, and by the way, it's all simple. This is all simple methods, simple ideas, and you start slowly. You find one that works. You use the habit stacking method in Atomic Habits to allow you to build one idea on top of the next really easily. And you get to a point where it just becomes a part of your existence. So how you live your life becomes an existence where you breathe in the right way. And you think, by the way, so for example, before this session, I thought, right, I need a bit of energy. I'll do a quick breath technique to give me energy. When you learn all of this stuff, it becomes a motor response. And every day, the way you exist, the way you live your life is by breathing the right way, positively interacting, moving, flowing through life, pushing your body, lifting your body. Everything in my house becomes a tool. Those spiral staircases behind me are a gift. As in, for me, I see them as a gift, because they are a place to monkey around. Climb up, do pull-ups, lots of stuff like that. The corner of a worktop becomes a dip bar. The heightened window ledge becomes a place to do what am I trying to say? A push-up with my feet on the windowsill. Everything then becomes play, having fun with it, using the school park, not school, but the playground rather. That becomes a place to play. Now, it's probably better that you get down there at 5 o'clock in the morning or 6 before the children arrive, but that is just the perfect playground to push, pull, lift your body. Go for a walk. Make it a breath walk where you slow everything down. You breathe as you walk. The steps of your walking become the beats for your breathing. You then become more consciously aware of your breath. You slow it down even further. You then see you're walking in nature, hopefully, so you start smelling, seeing, listening to all the stuff around you. That then slows down your prefrontal cortex, slows down your analytical mind, and you become more present. This is how I now live my life. I don't live it perfectly. I'm not in any way a guru, as you know. I just do this stuff and it works for me. But what I can tell you is this: if you can try these methods for a period of time, building on each one every day, you will get to a point where you no longer have to think before doing. They just become a part of your life. Have started. This is Tim Lloyd saying, I fasted, yes, 14-10 fasting and some positive effect on energy with push-ups, basic kettlebell workouts. Well done. Yeah, good work. Fasting is incredible. Human growth hormone kicks off when you're fasting. What I love is that kind of cellular renewal that you get as well after 24 hours. Tracy, thank you. Oh, well, thank you. Hakon F, do you have some tips to prevent getting mentally exhausted when working on a project on a computer all day? Yeah. Yes, I do. For those that work at a computer, because let's face it, that's most of us, isn't it? It's not healthy to do 8 hours sat at your desk. You have to be disciplined. The first thing I recommend is get yourself an app. I use something called Mindfulness Bell, and I set that bell to go off every 45 minutes to an hour. That simple bell, that's a really easy on the ear chime, a Buddhist bell, is meant to tell people to be more mindful. It could do that for you. Or you could also use it as a reminder to change your state. So what I mean by that is, let's say you are on a Zoom call and you can't move. Then in which case chair yoga is for you. Chair yoga is brilliant. It adds resistance to your muscles. It allows you to breathe correctly, changes the gas exchange in the body, make sure you get blood flowing around the body. Now, it is not a substitute for sitting on your backside all day, of course, but if you've got a 2-hour Zoom call, you can't move, although most of the time, let's face it, we know that we can, then chair yoga. Switch off your camera, because I'm sure they wouldn't mind. Do some chair yoga. That's number one. Next time the bell goes off, assuming you can break away from the computer, because we all can, can't we? Let's face it. We don't have to allow ourselves to be sucked in. It is discipline that's required here. Then get off your chair, get down and do some push-ups, or do some squats. Say to yourself, I've got 3 minutes. Set yourself a timer. I've got 3 minutes to do this. If you do 3-minute squats, jumping squats, that's going to get the blood flowing around your body again. And by the way, if you do that before you eat a really big meal, it aids in the digestion. Tim Ferriss does that a lot. Now, the next time the bell goes off, right, I'm going to go outside, I'm going to go for a walk. Let's hope this time you've got half an hour at least. So you go out for a walk, you make it a breath walk, you slow down your walk, you take in the sights and sounds around you, you get back to work. Bell goes off again. Right, this time I'm going to find another human being and I'm going to talk to them for 5 minutes in a positive way. Okay, so what you're doing is you're ticking boxes. This is that flight check thing that I talk about. Throughout your day, you need to do in-flight checks. Use the bell to remind you to do in-flight checks. Those in-flight checks are you switching on all of the different things we need to switch on in our body and mind to keep us in a healthy state, psychologically and physiologically. So that means both in terms of how we move our body, lift our body, how we interact with others, how we breathe, how we choose a mindful practice. And by the way, chores are brilliant for mindfulness. Let's say you've got a dishwasher. Forget the dishwasher. Choose to wash your dishes in a mindful way. I know it sounds silly, but you can do it. And you've then given your brain a mindful practice. And the way you do that is you turn on the tap, you listen to the sound of the water, you then focus on the water as it displaces itself over the dishes. You put your hand in the water, the bubbles, You look at the bubbles. You pick up a plate. Anybody watching you is going to think you've lost it now. But don't remember, a lot of how we go through life now depends on how we see the world and whether we really care what other people think. Because if you can reach a point where you no longer care, life becomes a lot easier, I guarantee. Anyway, so then you wash the plate. You're doing it very slowly. Remember that other video I said about slowing it down? And you're taking in every speck of dirt, food, etc., bacteria, whatever you want to think of on that plate, and you make damn sure that plate is sparkling clean. You then put it on the rack, the next one. And what you're doing is you're taking in everything around you, and you're allowing your mind to slow down and become aware of the present moment. That is mindful practice whilst washing up. Anyway, that's what I would do. As I said, break up your day by doing all of these things. Use a prompt in the form of a app that will just go bong. Right, I need to change my state. What am I going to do? Stand on my head? Move differently, etc., etc. Nicholas, thank you. Thanks for your kind words. Winston's gone a bit funny. Tracy, okay, cool. I do the same with furniture, outdoor walls. People think I'm strange. Yeah, exactly. And isn't that good? Which, in your opinion, is most important, cold showers or breath work? Well, I think it depends on what you're aiming to get out of both, because they both have benefits. Different benefits. Really, obviously, you want to do both to optimize your health, along with doing other things, of course. So for me, when I really needed it, it was the cold that was of greater benefit and more important to me when I needed it. In other words, when I was in a really bad state, I needed the cold to shake me out of my state. But then, as I improved my psychology, it was the breath work that opened up my mind. So hopefully that answers the question. It really does depend on what it is that you're looking to gain by doing it. Have you looked at adding salts or minerals to? I do. Yeah, I do. Absolutely. Especially on my hard physical days, Ben. I have a very special tub that has magnesium, salts, various other minerals in that I use when I'm working physically. Yeah, or if it's a really hot day. But yes, absolutely, definitely worth doing. A few years ago, is this Sean to K-Bob? I think you're answering a question to K-Bob. Once you think things works for you that previously dismissed, it really opens things up. Yeah, well said, Sean. Oh, thanks, Tracy. That's very kind. Paul, Dave, you explained how you hit your head on a night out as a result of drinking too much alcohol. Did you give up alcohol after that? No, I didn't. Didn't feel the need. So I've never had a negative association with alcohol. Every time I've been drunk, I've always been I've been a happy drunk. It's never made me. Actually, it has made me stupid. And there are certain alcoholic drinks that completely send me over the edge. I'm still happy, but I end up being quite rude. Apparently, I did have a go at a vicar once, and I also, in a local pub. Why am I telling you this? Should I really be telling you this? I said something to a larger lady about her impending pregnancy, but she wasn't pregnant, apparently. So that's what cider does to me. So that's why I don't drink cider. But every other alcohol, I do. I don't drink a great deal. If I drink anything, it tends to be vodka because I like the fact that it's clean. I do think, a bit like Hamilton says, what's his name? What's his full name? He's on Vice. Intelligent guy that explores various different drugs around the world. And as he says, that from a molecular level, alcohol is pretty terrible, as in it's rubbish. you have to drink so much of it to get any kind of effect. I kind of agree with him there. It is true. But especially after a hard day of physical exercise, I quite like turning to a vodka and tonic. But it is extremely rare that you would see me drunk, as in I haven't been that way for years. Well, I say years, maybe 2 or 3. But either way, yeah, most of the time I just have a glass or 2, and that is it. And some weeks I don't have any. But I think if you've got a association with alcohol that's not serving you, then obviously you've got to knock it on the head. For me, I don't have that, so I'm okay. But I think if I ever got to a point where it just wasn't serving me, in other words, I was using it as a crux to deal with psychological problems, then I'd like to think I've got at some point the presence of mind to stop drinking. Right. Any other questions before we wrap this up? And by the way, I'm totally amazed that I've had people watching my channel in the first place. I'm totally amazed that I've had people here in the live. It tells me that maybe I should do this again, because actually I've enjoyed it, apart from the dry throat that I'm getting from talking too much. By the way, that's something else worth bearing in mind here. I would never do this 3 or 4 times a day, as in leading calls like this. And I think those that have to do that for work, be careful. You can get something called respiratory alkalosis. Ben, thanks, Ben. I really appreciate it. And I hope your situation starts to improve. Go back to one of the recent videos I put out there on slowing it down. The breath might help. And also there's a couple of other breathwork videos that could be useful for you if you're in a rubbish state. By the way, on the breathwork front, there's more to come. I'm collaborating with somebody, maybe another person as well. So there's going to be some more breathwork stuff on my channel. I know from putting out the question to you guys that that's the kind of thing you're looking for. So there will be some coming. Thanks, Michael. Thanks for being here. Thanks, Joanne. Wow, that was brilliant. Thank you. Appreciate you being here. I really do. I think that's where we end it. So, Ayush, this might be super cringe, but has mastering your breath helped with your sexual performance? Honestly curious. Something has improved things. But should I tell you this or not? I'm not too sure. So I recently separated. Hence why I'm living here on my own. So there is no sex. Yeah, I don't know. All I know is that I feel excitable, should we say, on a regular basis. And I think that will definitely be down to everything that I do. Thanks, Paulie. K-Bob, slow it down. Videos are great. Thank you. Follow one last night. Oh, great. Thanks, K-Bob. And by the way, Ayush, I think also just coming back to that on a separate note, things like mastering the Mula Bandha clench is really good for sexual performance. And that is where you're clenching the muscles in the perineum. Something that you do in pranayama, something that we do a lot in soma breath. If, by the way, you practice a soma session that's got Kevala in it, then especially for the women, you are very likely to experience some kind of orgasmic experience. So that's where you do an hour-long session. The Kevala bit is where you're breathing in a very particular way. It is sympathetic led, but it really builds up the energy. So if you can find a live in the physical world Soma Breath group session near you, I highly recommend it. Right, here endeth today's live stream. I really appreciate you being here. Thank you very much. I hope it was useful to you. I've really enjoyed it. So let's do more. Maybe on a regular Sunday, maybe not every Sunday, but maybe that's the way to go. Anyway, Paulie, you must be Irish, I'm guessing. So thank you. and goodbye.